There was once this little boy, and he lived in his tiny little house with his granddad and his dad, and he was a little bit of a loner, and he had these allergies, which prevented him from actually leaving the house in the spring and the summer. So during that time, he had to stay in this tiny, tiny little space in this little room. But he enjoyed it, because it gave him the chance to just do whatever he wants. He could draw, he could write, he could paint, he could create all these magical stories, and he didn't need this outside space to do all that because he had himself to do all this. Anyway, soon school, yes, primary school started back, and geez, he hated it. I mean, it started with the whole roll of autumn coming on, and it was horrible weather. Yep, and yeah, he started back, and the teachers were horrible, and he was bullied. He was bullied quite a lot, really. The kids, whatever he'd do, the kids would bully him. So he tried to always remember what his mum said, because you see now his mum died not that long ago. So he had quite a lot to deal with. So yeah, his mum always taught him to go to his heart and to try and ignore as best as he could everything that they said, and just be himself and create all this wonderful stuff, because he is so much better than everybody else. Yeah, but his dad didn't care, teachers didn't care, kids didn't care. So this one day, this rainy December afternoon, he stayed behind late because his dad was supposed to go and pick him up. Thing is, his dad never turned up. So it was getting later and later, and the teacher's getting even more angry, because the teacher's having to stay behind with the kid, and the teacher doesn't exactly want to do that, because sometimes teachers are like that. They just want to get paid. So yeah, the teacher's getting more and more angry, and he sat there and he was reading this book. It was actually his favourite book that his mum had given him, and to try and make himself feel a bit better. And his dad came in, he rushed in, rain dripping off of his face, really angry as well, as if the kid had done something wrong, and apparently the granddad had an accident, so he was in hospital. And the dad came in, he was shouting at the son, blaming the son when it had absolutely nothing to do with him. And then the kid went back to reading his book, because it was all he knew how to do. He didn't know any other way to release any emotion. So he went back to read the book, and the dad took it off of him, ripped it up, and threw it on the floor. Now this upset the kid. This upset the kid quite a lot. As you can imagine, he picked up the book as fast as he could, and he picked up all his pages on the floor that the dad had ripped, and he ran out. He ran away. He ran straight out of that building. The teacher didn't take any notice, and the dad just stood there watching. And he ran back home, and he ran back to his small little place, the confined space that he sits in during the autumn. And he took out the book, and he didn't know how to react, because the book was all ripped up, and he couldn't get the pages back together, and nothing was right, everything was wrong, everything was too big, and he missed his mum, and he'd know that she'd protect him if she was here, but she wasn't, and he was so upset. But then he remembered what she said. That wasn't actually about certain objects, because when there is something, it's not actually, it doesn't always have to be visible. You don't have to see it. So he knew that in his head and in his heart, she was still there, and he didn't need his little book. So he felt a little bit better because of that, and it helped him to carry on. So one day, he managed to move out of the house when he grew up, and he became a writer, and he lived in these fantastic huge houses. So don't listen to bullies.